All right, so my name is Brendan Schreiber. I'm the executive director at the Mitt TV, local news station in downtown Romeo. Ms. Harbison, like she said, she reached out to me about short films. I got into all this because I like making movies. That's more my passion. Obviously, at the Mitt, it's not a film studio. It's a television studio. But being there with the tools, with the people. I mean, I got Ben with me. He went to film school with me. And we got a couple other guys that I went to film school with. And so not only do we come here, we're able to work, make money, make a living, but also on the side, I mean, we're all together anyways now. We kind of have an excuse to keep making projects. So a bit about me. I graduated in 2018. After I graduated, I took a year off from school. I got into Wayne State with a really good scholarship, but you know, me wanting to make film, I wasn't 100% sure that the college route was the way for me to go. Because a lot of times they will require you to take a lot of other extrinsic classes other than film. And after my senior year, I was kind of done with math. I was kind of done with science, kind of done with social studies. That was just me. Those really aren't my interests. Although I do think that being in those other classes, having more knowledge will help you when you do sit down to write something. And maybe it's something you're not even passionate about. Maybe it's something that you just need to understand. Like if, you know, anybody see Oppenheimer this summer? Raise your hand. Come on, only like 5 people saw that movie? Well, anyway, it's obviously a historical movie. Well, you can't write and direct that movie unless you know the history. So there's a lot of other things that do play a part in knowledge and in other classes that will help you when it comes to sitting down to write and come up with ideas. But after I took my year off, I realized, no, I want to go to film school. So I went to Motion Picture Institute. I'm sure Ms. Harbison's probably mentioned it to you guys before. And it's literally a straight year through. You started in September, and then you ended in September. And they treat it like a trade school, but you're hands-on the entire time. You're holding cameras, they're teaching you how to write, and you're doing all of this simultaneously. You're going to different classes, they're throwing you onto actual film sets, and they break up the class, and they actually, you know, require you to work like an actual film crew, which is cool. And you're not, in my opinion, I don't think you're going to get that out of a lot of most conventional college classrooms. But after I graduated Motion Picture Institute in 2020, it was about a year later where I got a phone call from Ruth Heidebrecht, the owner of the Mitt TV, and she said, you know, I talked to a couple people in town. At that time, I was working at a furniture store right in Romeo, and she walked in to buy a table that I had spent probably a day putting together because it was in 100 million pieces. She buys it the next day, and she looks at my boss and goes, "What's this kid's deal?" Well, he makes films. He wants to do this. He wants to do that with film. He just graduated from film school. So that's when she called me and said, "Hey, I want to bring you on board." Kind of told her, like, "Look, I'm not like the TV guy. You know, I'm not 100% the sports guy. I'm not even the most technical guy. Okay, 35mm camera. I don't know 100% what that means. But if you want to, you know, write, direct, and even edit, you don't necessarily have to know what that means. You have to understand it a little bit, respect it, but you don't have to be the master class of it." So I was kind of upfront with, you know, with my passions. She said, "Look, you can do all that and more here at the Mitt," and that's kind of what we've been doing. And like I said, I got Ben on board. We have another guy, Lucas, who again went to Motion Picture Institute with me. And now we kind of have an excuse to always be around each other, sharing ideas, and making stuff happen outside of the studio. So really, the studio kind of acts as a, you know, conduit for our creativity in a way. And yeah, that's where we still make films. I don't know if Ms. Harbison remembers this, but
I still show that film.
What's that?
I still show this film.
Good, cool.
Isn't this one with the straws?
No. That's a different one.
Or is this the alien hand?
That's the alien one.
Okay.
So when it was January 2017, where I took this picture, and it was right after Stranger Things was kind of in the cultural zeitgeist, and it was big and it was huge. And me and my friends were like, "What if we made some like interdimensional monster movie?" And so what we did was, this is us setting up a shot right now, and I don't know if you can see it, but my buddy Andrew in the red shirt has like 100 strings attached to every single desk in Ms. Harbison's old English classroom. And our protagonist, who was my buddy Jake, in the movie, he's walking around the hallways, it's empty at school, and then, he hears something, he runs away, he sees the monster, but we don't see it, then he runs in the classroom. Well then, just for this shot right here, we wanted the monster to use, telepathy to barricade the kid in the classroom. So what we did is we set up a wide shot, but hid the floor. And so all the strings were attached to every single desk in Miss Harbison's room. And then when I called action, Andrew on the other, I had to scream action for Andrew to hear us on the other side of the door. And he ran and pulled all the strings back. And then Miss Harbison's classroom, all the desks just piled up at the front. And then,
and just so you guys know, because some of them might not know that, I once taught English.
Yeah.
So when Brendan was in my video program, I had 2 classrooms. I had my English classroom where I taught English, and then we were in an old wood shop class that had 2 floors, and that was my video production room. So on the hours I taught video, if kids wanted a location, I would give them my keys and say, go film in my English classroom.
Yeah.
So like they were filming on the opposite end of the school. I usually had no idea what was going on until they brought their clips in.
Yeah. So we
so I wasn't there. It wasn't
classroom.
like 30 kids were in the class. That was their set for them.
Right.
Just he and his crew.
Yeah, so we destroyed Miss Harbison's classroom and had to put it back together again before she noticed. And then, like 5 years later, we're still working on movies. That's us making our latest movie next. We're at the film studio in Romeo at Mitt. That's us working with a miniature, setting up a shot, because we do like to use a lot of miniatures now whenever we film. But that's a little bit about me. It's been really cool to have everything kind of culminate, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't live in Romeo, but I've always known people that have lived in Romeo, so I've always had a reason to come back to Romeo. I never thought that a job would bring me back to Romeo, and it's even weirder now that I'm talking to Miss Harbison and saying, hello, how you doing, Miss Harbison, and being all formal, and it's weird and it's cool at the same time. Yeah. But I mean, it just kind of goes to show that you can kind of find these sorts of things and these sort of passions literally anywhere, especially in the place that you expected the least, like my hometown.
Right.
So that's a little bit about me. I want to get to you guys now, because Miss Harbison reached out to me and said that you guys are making short films, said you guys are struggling a little bit with the writing, and I get it. I was the only kid at film school that enjoyed writing. And writing wasn't even a big part of film school. It was literally one class, and everything else was really technical. Everything else was learning how to work with the cameras, work with the sound equipment, work with each other as a crew, which is cool. But when you don't have the sort of the multitasking brain of being able to say, okay, I gotta write, I gotta direct, and then I gotta edit, you do lose a little bit of value and a little bit of respect for the other people that are involved in the filmmaking process. So, you might think of the filmmaking process as like, okay, the writer, he's going to write the script, he's going to finish it. Okay, then they're going to hand it to the director's going to take it, they're going to break it down, figure out what shots that they want to do, and then they're going to film it. And then with all the shots that they have, they're going to go ahead and give it to the editor, and now it's their job to sort of put it together, and they have the final say in the story. So you have the 3 storytellers, one who writes it, directs it, and edits it, and they're the one with always the final say. And that's pretty plain, simple, black and white. But right now, you guys, and I was there too, are your most resourcefully destitute, okay? You have, whether it's, lack of money, lack of people around you, lack of locations, anything. Like, you are the most restricted you are ever going to be right here in high school, and I get it. I was there too. That's why we use straws instead of guns.
And they wanted to use, and I'm like, we can't use weapons.
Yeah.
It's high school. How do you show?
Right.
I'll show you guys the film. I know I've shared it with individual students who were working on different film projects, but I still haven't. So.
Well, that's cool. It's the most ridiculous film you'll ever watch.
No, it was really
but it was fun. So right now you can't picture things in black and white of like, okay, I'm just gonna write this and send it off and it'll be done. Okay, I'll direct this, I'll send it off and it'll be done. I'll edit it. Okay, that's just my job. I'll sit back and let the other guys work while I just sit and wait. You can't do that. Okay, life is in color, and you got to be able to learn how to do everything. Okay, because again, you're going to be more valuable when you do know how to do a little bit of everything, and then you're going to learn respect. Okay, because you know what? Somebody might hand you a script, And I'll tell you right off the bat, I hate reading scripts. I really do, because I read a lot of books, and the way a script reads is a lot different than the way a book reads. You know, a book, you know, with every single word, they're trying to entertain you. A script is very much, this happens, this happens, this happens, this person says this. It's very straightforward, because the writer's just trying to get you down the page, because they want to film it. They don't want to waste your time with a lot of details that the director's going to kind of figure out later on and fill in that space. But if somebody hands you a script, you're not going to say, well, that was garbage. You know, because if you sat down and you've taken the time to write something, you're going to understand, oh, I know what it's like to be pulling teeth writing a script. I know what it's like to be, have zero idea what the heck I'm going to write, but you have to write something because it's an assignment. Okay, so you're going to look at that other person and go like, yeah, you know what, I get it, I've been there, done that. And the same thing with a director. You might be looking at a script and you go like, okay, there's not a whole lot here. It's very straightforward and to the point. How am I going to translate it to film? Because film is, again, a visual medium. You know, and so understanding that struggle, you as a writer might be like, all right, let me help this director out. Let me maybe give a little bit more direction in the actual script and really set this person up for success. And then again, as a writer, you know, looking at the editor. Without you realizing it, when you're writing, you're also editing, because you're picking where to put certain scenes within the sequence of a story. Okay, so what you do in one scene has to relate to what happens next, otherwise why are you going to that scene? So you're in a way manipulating how the editor is going to look at that scene. Now the editor might see an opportunity that maybe you didn't see while you were writing and change it up a little bit. But again, vice versa, you're going to have to learn how to do all three of these, you know, wear all three of these hats. Because again, you're going to become super valuable also in the actual industry. Like for example, Ben, he's behind the camera right now. He's acted in a lot of my films. He's arguably the funniest guy I've ever met. But I've asked him to play like some of the most serious and dramatic stuff ever, and he's killed it. Without him realizing, he killed it. We'll stop a shot and he'll go, "Was that good? Was that good?" Like, I don't know. I feel like I was moving too much. You know, no, it was great. And his main profession is a sound guy. There will be days where we say, "Hey Ben, we got a film shoot in Romeo. Are you able to make it?" "Nah, man, I got a gig that I got to go, you know, record sound for." He has his own sound equipment, and so again, he's just a much more valuable asset because he's not just waiting for the sound gigs to show up. He can come to film shoots and he can come film football with us, and you know, and that's actually where I hear about like, oh, how did this gig go? How did this gig go? Man, it sucked. We were out in the rain. You know, it was just, I was holding a boom pole over my head for like 10 hours. It just sucked. You know, hey man, I get it. But you know, overall, I mean, he does a really good job. He's done sound for my films, and you know, there's been times where he's traded places with people doing sound. For example, if two people are on screen and he's one of them, the person who's not on screen will grab his boom pole and do the sound. And again, that person's not just an actor now; they're a sound person. So, and I'm sure, I mean, you guys probably do that here, where some of the slack needs to get picked up. I assume that you pick it up for your classmates, and you kind of know how to do a little bit of everything, right? Is that a yes? Yeah? Okay. So again, you knowing how to do all three of these things, you're going to become a lot more valuable. But we can break it down a little bit. So we're going to start with the writing, which is that the part where we're really struggling right now?
Just coming up with an idea.
Coming up with an idea?
Coming up with an idea. I think over the years, you know, students can come up with ideas, but they kind of fall flat.
Right.
And maybe it's what I'm giving them. How to develop the character. How do you develop the plot? How do you develop the resolution?
Right.
You know, like, more than just like, there's a setting, these characters, it's a horror film. But like, there's no...
But like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why is it a horror film? Right.
Yeah.
So, this is the part that not only, you guys might be struggling with, but I see most of my colleagues that I work with now that send me scripts, this is also the biggest thing that they struggle with too, and I could be a little bit more blunt with them, whereas earlier I told you, like, yeah, don't look at your peers and say, oh, that was garbage. I can look at my peers, because they know me and I know them, they got really thick skin, I got thick skin too, and we can be like, hey, what are you doing? That's not coming from a place of, I want to destroy your idea. That's coming from a place of, I don't want you to do something that isn't good. And I want you to really work hard and try to better the script and better yourself. And a lot of it comes down to really simple stuff like, like characters. So your film's going to have a character, it's going to have a protagonist, it might have an antagonist. But what you really need is someone to relate to. And so I got a picture of Luke Skywalker here because I assume most of us have seen Star Wars, right? Or at least heard of Star Wars. In literally the first film, he's just a kid who dreams of going off on adventures. How many times have you sat in class, the teacher's talking, you're not listening, and you're thinking like, man, I could be doing this thing that is so cool right now. I could be going off doing this. I can't wait to graduate to go off and do this. That's literally, the reason why everybody loves Luke Skywalker is because we've all been in his shoes. We've all had that moment where it's like, oh, I wish I could go off and do this, and I wish I could, I have so many dreams and adventures that I want to conquer when I'm older. And then another thing that I see people struggle with is theme, something to actually relate to. So again, going back to Star Wars, the whole point of that first film with Luke Skywalker is learning how to, he learns about the Force, and the whole thing is, okay, learning to let go and to kind of trust, right? His Jedi Master Ben Kenobi literally says, let go, let go, let go. And so it's really about Luke Skywalker learning to kind of let go and just let things happen naturally. And we've all been there. How many times, whether it's been a person, a thing, have you actually had to let go of something and say, you know what, if I let go, I'm going to be better off for it? That's, again, why we care about the movie and why we care about the character, because there's a theme there that the character directly relates to and that we can also directly relate to. And then the last thing is setups and payoffs. That's another thing that I see a lot of people struggle with is, okay, what you have to realize, guys, is people are sitting down to watch your movie. Okay, and they're taking the time out of their day to watch your movie. I don't know if you guys want to go ahead and make feature films when you're older. Doesn't matter, okay? That person that's making that movie is asking you to pay money to sit down for 2.5 hours to watch their film. So you as the audience, you have to walk away with something. Whether it's 2.5 hours or 2.5 minutes, people should watch your work and walk away with something, whether that's knowledge about themselves, knowledge about you. They need to walk away feeling like they earned something, and that's where setups and payoffs come from. So I remember when I watched Empire Strikes Back as a kid, and has everybody seen Empire Strikes Back? Does everybody know Empire Strikes Back? Okay. So do you remember the scene where Luke Skywalker goes into the cave and he fights, has that vision, and he fights Darth Vader and will wallop the head, and then the head falls on the ground and the mask bursts open and he sees himself in the helmet? I remember watching that as a kid going, oh, what was that? I have no idea what that means. Okay, I guess we're going to go on to the next thing. That was cool. Well, at the end of the film, that's the big reveal, that I am your father. And then now as I'm older and I look back on it, I go, oh, that's why we spent 2 minutes in that one scene, because that was a setup for that payoff. So obviously it took me a while to kind of understand it as I got older. But there's several moments in a lot of movies that there will be scenes that are strictly there to set up scenes that come later on. It makes it feel like your time watching those scenes, it makes it feel earned. And it makes you as an audience member feel like, oh, it really was worth my time sitting down watching this movie, because maybe you didn't have to learn something. Maybe it was just exciting. Could you imagine hearing that twist for the first time in a movie theater? That was the biggest thing back in the day. My dad talks about it. He goes, right, because you couldn't go back and buy the DVD and rewatch it. He literally told me, he goes, Brendan, everybody thought Darth Vader was BSing Luke. Everybody thought he was lying. He goes, oh, there's no way, he's his father, oh my gosh. And then they had to wait 3 years for it to really be solidified. Like, oh yeah, he really is Luke Skywalker's father. So, and he actually told me, he goes, people hated that movie when it came out in the 80s. People did not revere it as much as they do today. So, but you guys right now, obviously I'm talking about Star Wars, and we don't have a George Lucasfilm Disney budget right now. So you're probably sitting thinking, okay, what is it I can possibly write about? And my biggest piece of advice is write what you know. And I know, you guys are kids in high school right now. the experiences you're going to experience in life are going to far outweigh what you're going to do here. But I guarantee you there's always something that you can pull from your real life. And when I talk about Write What You Know, I'll give an example. I have a film friend who is producing a film for one of his friends. And this friend, he wrote a script. My film friend sent it to me. I read it, and it was bad. And so I got back with my buddy and said, like, okay, I read this script about a married couple who's getting a divorce because the father lost the kid. And I said, how old is the person that wrote the script? He goes, 19. I said, okay, is he married? No. Okay, which means he's probably not getting a divorce, right? And I said, he doesn't have a kid, does he? No. And I said, well, there you go. Because I'm reading this script, and whether it's the dialogue, there's definitely a huge disconnect, and you can tell that the person wasn't well versed in the subject of marriage, okay? Now, I'm not a lawyer. That'd be me, like, wanting to go write a crime drama. You know, like, I watched The Dark Knight, for example, and you think, oh, Batman, that's really, really cool. Like, yeah, I could write a Batman film. Well, you can't write that Batman film unless you have some sort of knowledge of legalese and being a lawyer, because half of that movie is literally a crime drama. An example of me of Write What You Know, have any of you ever seen The Big Lebowski? Yes. Yeah? So I made a short film in 2021 called Life on Brooklyn Side Lane, which Ben also stars in. And if you've seen Big Lebowski, honestly, you've seen this. So we made that film in 2021. When I was in high school, I was on the bowling team for a year. And it was my junior year. And, you know, this isn't anything with, you know, kids that are on the bowling team now. I'm not on the bowling team now. But I will tell you what, those were some of the craziest freaking characters I have ever seen in my life was on that bowling team. And half of the dialogue that you hear in this movie, albeit it would be rated R, if this did have an MPAA rating, half of the dialogue you hear is inspired by other stuff that I've heard kids say while on the bowling team. Well, I've heard, like, my grandfather, he's a big bowler. He's the one that wanted me to be on the bowling team. I'm a pretty decent bowler. And when you bowl, they have an approach where it's, you know, before you throw the ball, they call it a 5-step approach. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom, you throw the ball. Well, when I was first learning how to bowl, my grandfather, or I threw the ball, my grandfather, he comes up to me and he's really nice. He didn't want to embarrass me in front of anybody. He goes, Brendan, it's a 5-step approach. Not 27. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. And then you throw the ball. I say, yeah, okay, because I took so many steps before I threw the actual ball. This guy goes, okay, I gotta set this kid straight. And literally that line is in the movie, but it is said, again, far worse than how my grandfather said it. So again, that's me pulling from real life and saying, oh, I met all these crazy people, and you know, and we actually filmed it at Summit, right down the road. So I knew the layout of the actual bowling alley. So again, that's me thinking, while I'm writing it, I'm thinking as a director of like, okay, I know that this is here, this is there, this is how I can film it, and we can do it efficiently. And we filmed, I want to say it was a 14, 15-page script in about 15, 16 hours straight at the bowling alley. And normally it takes, like, you'll spend a day filming about 3.5 pages while you're actually on a film set. So that's kind of what I mean by Write What You Know.
Just out of curiosity, did you film after hours?
Oh, so they were closed at that time. I don't know if they're closed on Mondays anymore.
Oh, okay.
But
so
they
you
were
used it on a day that...
Exactly. I mean, you know, and that's the thing too, guys. If, like, you want to film something somewhere outside of the high school, literally just go ask. I told the guy I'm a senior at Romeo High School, even though I was 21 years old, and he believed me. Yeah, I'm a senior at Romeo High School, you know, we got a summer film project going on. Oh yeah, you know, we'll get your kids right in.
I do have to say, this group is post-pandemic. When you were here, I was like, film everything in groups in this building, unless you want to do it on your own time. The world shutting down was the best thing that happened for production in this class. because kids all of a sudden were forced to film outside of the school.
Right.
So now when kids are like, can we just film it here? Now I'm like,
it's kind of boring.
It is. Right. I'm not saying that you guys can't film it here, but they have, the only thing they film in school are like news packages.
Right.
But everything else, their PSAs, they're filming outside.
So they're kind of used to it?
Yes.
Yeah, like, you know, literally, you can go up to probably any business around here and they'll let you film if you tell them that if you are a film student in school. Literally. And you can still probably do that when you're 21 years old. Walk in and say, I'm a senior at Romeo High School, and they will probably let you film.
And then I'll get phone calls and we'll have to,
yeah.
But I'll be like, yes, they are.
We filmed on a beach. We filmed at Warren Dunes last summer, and a patrol stopped us while we were filming on the beach because we had guys in like military gear, guns, all this stuff, and so they stopped. It probably wasn't the wisest decision to have guns out. So the patrol stopped us and said, like, what's going on here? What's going on here? I said, oh, we're seniors at Romeo High School filming a summer film project. And he goes, oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like commercial work. And I'm like, yeah, we're filming a Pepsi commercial here, bud. What do you think? No, so I mean, they left us alone, so it's a good excuse you could always have in the back of your belt if you're filming for the summer. All right, so next you got the director. So you finished your script, now you got to direct it. You're the visual translator. You're here to justify the script, justify what happens in the script. You know, and the biggest thing is you're here to orient the audience. And I mean, what I really mean that is orient them in, okay, who's the scene about, the perspective of the scene. For example, for people that saw Oppenheimer this summer, like that was honestly a great example of perspective, because when you were in the sequences where it was clearly about Oppenheimer, whenever there would be like another character he was observing, the camera would be behind that person's back, sort of putting in the lens of Oppenheimer. And then when it would switch to black and white from the point of view of Louis Strauss, you would the same exact thing. Whoever he's looking at, you're seeing the back of that person. So again, you're in that person's perspective. But also orient people in terms of the actual geography. Like, have you guys ever heard of the 180-degree rule? You guys? No? I
know it. Yeah.
You know, so that's essentially saying, like, so I have the scene from Jurassic. You've all seen Jurassic Park? Yeah? Okay. You guys aren't very talkative.
It's their last hour.
It's their last hour?
And the lights are off. They're
that's
calm.
Okay.
They are calm.
All right.
They're chill. They're very
cool.
chill. Normally.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So I got the scene from Jurassic Park here. And one of the things that I honestly didn't realize about it until I threw this up on the PowerPoint was Steven Spielberg, who directed that film, he never puts you or the camera on the other side of those cars until the characters are on the other side of those cars. He keeps the scene on this side of the cars, so that way you're not disoriented in terms of like, okay, I know the T-Rex is over here, but the car's over here, the characters are over here. If he was to keep the camera over here for most of the scene, and then maybe one shot is randomly on the other side of the cars, you would instantly go, whoa, where am I? Where am I oriented in the scene? So he literally keeps the camera on this side of those cars until the actual characters walk over to the other side before the T-Rex pushes the car over the ledge. So that's essentially, you know, orienting the audience within the actual geography of the space that you're filming in. So you might look at a script and you say, how can I possibly film this? And obviously, again, you're saying this to high school students. What I would say is know your limits, don't show your limits. I can't remember what YouTube video I watched where somebody said that, and it stuck with me, and I've been telling myself that ever since. So what I really mean by that, so this is another couple of films that we filmed. Does anybody recognize that hallway on the left? Does anyone know where that is?
Upstairs.
That's in the red. Yeah. So that's the red sea portion of the building.
Downstairs, the main downstairs.
So I'm not gonna lie, I didn't come here during the academy, so I have no idea what that means. I just know that that was the red sea.
Yeah.
That was my red sea. You know, when I came here. So we filmed a time travel heist movie called Amendment our year at MPI. It was my thesis film, so this was during COVID.
Oh gosh. And
well, I called Mr. Oswald and I said, hey, I got a script that I wrote. In the script, they're in this industrial building. I don't have an industrial building, but I know there's a portion of the Red Sea that if you go there and if you film it right, people will not know it's a high school. Now, you guys, if you watch the scene, you'll recognize like, oh, there's the stairs that go down. There's that classroom that you're talking about. But people that have never been here before, they're just going to say like, oh, that's just like an industrial. That's just an industrial-looking building. Do you mind if I play that scene real quick?
Yeah, play it. I just want to say this too. It's hard for them to imagine being in a traditional high school,
right?
Because they've never been in one,
right?
Do you know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean.
So
this is like Oakland University.
Right.
I compare this to Oakland University.
Right. Even like I have a group right now doing a documentary on our culinary program,
right? Because
I'm making them,
right?
Because I say like, you guys, most schools don't have what we have.
You guys got a restaurant here.
Yeah, well, they don't know because the restaurant doesn't serve food to kids.
Right.
Because they can't right now.
Wait, was that a spoiler? Did you guys not know there was a restaurant?
Yeah, they're like, what?
All right, never mind. Forget what I just said. Forget what I just said.
So right now there is like an online menu that staff can order from. Last night our culinary program hosted a banquet that they catered for over 200 people. That's huge. But I think a lot of the kids are like, well, yeah, we have a culinary program.
Right.
There was a year last year, kids were coming in with bubble tea. And I'm like, where are you guys getting bubble tea? And they're like, oh, it's in the cafeteria. Okay, that is not traditional high school. Did you have bubble tea when you were at?
No, we had a really crappy water fountain.
Right.
That was it.
Oh, now they have like purified water dispenser. So all I'm saying is, you knew that there was a part of the building that looked industrial. I know I said we really haven't filmed anything that looks except news packages in here. But there are parts of the building that don't look like a traditional high school. In fact, Max, last year you filmed something. Remember, you needed like the passcode to get through.
Yeah, we filmed in like just a normal hallway. Like it was from BEI to them. We just filmed in there because we thought, oh yeah, this looks nothing like a school.
Right, and they use their phone as like the keypad. But like you had the same idea. How do I make this building look like something that it's not? But yeah, show us the scene.
You were trying to make the school look like a school?
No.
Or not look like a school. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Is the volume adjusted?
You might have to test it.
Where's the?
Right here.
It's right there.
You might have to play a little and rewind it. Oh.
Where's the?
Can I refresh it?
Go for it.
Do you think he's there?
I'll go to this hallway scene real quick. So just to give you a little bit of context, this movie is a time travel heist movie. And so our characters, they communicate through a book that's actually in the past. Actually, scratch that. My own movie confuses the heck out of me. They're in the past. There's another guy in the future. The guy in the future is trying to crack a safe. And so what they do is they communicate through a book. Them in the past, they have the past book. So when they write the combination, it'll appear in the future. So that's what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to find the combination. But do you guys recognize the hallway?
Do you think he's there?
I've known Edwin a very long time. Tardiness is not among his staples.
My time reads 10:01.
And I'm confident that he's found our safe.
And you think we could crack it in an hour?
We just need the code.
Yeah, and we don't have it.
But I found the man who does.
You remember Barrett Brunke?
Yeah.
That's our target. And he's going to help us break into his own safe.
And that's pretty much it. So, again, that was just a hallway. And me as an editor, okay, how can I make the space feel more industrial? Okay, so I'll add people talking, I'll add footsteps walking around, it'll make the area feel like it's more lively. So again, that was just me looking at a script going, I don't know, I don't have access to any sort of industrial building, but I know this one part of Romeo High School is pretty industrial. And we never say in the film that, hey, we're in this industrial building. You as the audience are just supposed to watch it and feel like, okay, you're in some sort of official, high status, high industrial place. But again, when it comes to knowing your limits, it's not just about, you know, trying to not show your limits. There's times where it's like, no, it's actually cool to show your limitations a little bit. So that's where a couple years later we made another short film about the same group of characters. But this time we wanted to shoot it because a lot of people think he's British, but he's South African. My friend Keanu, who's speaking mostly in that scene on the left, his character is actually from 1955. So at the end of Amendment, the film we did in 2020, we did happen to find a 1954 Chevy truck that another one of my friends owns. And so we filmed in Romeo, which looks very, you know, old hometown. And we had the car drive by for a scene, and we slapped the title card on there, okay, now you're in 1955. Well, we wanted to go back and do something again, but we didn't want to use the same car. So I went to CVS on 24 Mile, I think it is. They have a rack of all these old style toy cars. I bought one that, you know, looked like it was from the 50s at least, and I bought a wood board. I put sand on it, and we did a little bit of forced perspective, and then, you know, it kind of looks like my buddy is standing next to this old style car. You know, we filmed it on a dirt road, and obviously the more you look at it, the more you kind of realize like there's something weird about the image, and oh, it's a miniature, but that's kind of what makes film, is being able to see like, oh, there's some trickery that's going on. They're really trying to do something, and they're really being creative, and that's where the craftsmanship kind of comes in. Because you watch those older films like Star Wars, and then you start to pay attention, you go like, oh man, that really looks dated. Like the stop motion for some of the scenes that they use, some of the miniatures, you know, the older we get, a lot of their old tricks start to come to the forefront. And in a way, it almost makes the movie a little bit more charming. So when it comes to your limits, and being limited as, you know, a kid in high school, don't be afraid to also lean into those things, because you might end up with something that, sure, maybe it's not seamless, but people will appreciate, A, maybe the attempt, but also B, like the craftsmanship of really trying to pull something like that off. So the final thing, which is the editor, this is the person who, again, at the very end, takes everything you shot, and they have the final say when it comes to a film, because once they're done, they push it out and they put it in the theater. Obviously, they collaborate with the director, and there's times, and it's been like on shoots that I've done, where you go, crap, I'm editing this thing, I got all my shots in order, but there's something that does not make sense, because I'm trying to relay information to the audience. That's what you're trying to do throughout the whole editing process, is figure out the best way to relay information to the audience. So one thing we learned about while in film school is this editing technique called the Kuleshov effect, which essentially tries to explain why we sort of feel a certain way about certain characters and how we interpret characters based on the visuals that are presented to us in a specific order. So, you know, you got a guy, you know, intercut that with a bowl of food, and then cut back to the guy. Well, the idea is you're supposed to imply that he's hungry. Or you could take the same shot of the guy, instead of intercutting with food, intercut it with a beautiful woman, okay, and then cut back to the guy, you're supposed to imply that he's being lustful. That's the idea of the Kuleshov effect. But, again, thinking as an editor, you also have to think as a director. And while you're directing, you got to think, okay, how am I going to splice this together? I need the right information in the right sequence. If you don't get it while you're filming, you're not going to have it while you're editing. So, you know, someone might hand you something, and there's something missing, and you go, how do I possibly make something with this?
Could you how do you say this?
Kuleshov.
Kuleshov?
It's Russian, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Could you, I'm thinking they're doing PSAs. I've seen so many student examples that are like 12 shots of like starting the car, hands on the steering wheel, foot pushing the button, you know, all these things. Could you use that same thing to like show foreshadowing.
Oh, yeah.
So
For
like,
sure.
cut away to like a person walking, or cut away
Yeah.
to something that's going to happen, not just how the character feels.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a movie that did that recently that you guys might have seen. I just watched this on Netflix. I guarantee none of you have seen it. It's called Vice. Have any of you guys seen Vice? Ms. Harbison, have you seen Vice?
I don't know. I don't think so.
It's about Dick Cheney. It's a movie about Dick Cheney.
No, I have not seen it.
And well, throughout the movie, there's several scenes where it just cuts to like a random image, and you know, the movie really delves deep into how he was really able to use people, kind of, you know, work around people, and so it'll cut to like a random image of like him casting a line, you know, while fishing. You know, in order for you to kind of imply that like, oh, he's digging for something, he's reaching for something, he's trying to do something, and he's trying to reel somebody in. So there's, you know, that's the only movie I can think of recently that I've.
But I'm thinking you guys, with what you already have in post-production, I know we're in rough draft stages. Are there little places where you could?
It also depends, because I mean, if you don't have the footage, it could just be a case of fun where it's like, hey, you don't have the footage, you can't do that because you didn't shoot it.
Right, but
there
if you
could be a
already
chance.
have, if you already have
Yeah.
footage of the consequence, because theirs is a whole like, if you are
Right.
a distracted driver, here's the consequence. Could you flash to?
Well, so have you seen Memento?
Yes.
So like that's a good one. Has anybody
Yes.
seen Memento?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is one person back? Okay, good. Yeah, I mean Memento. Literally the whole movie is running backwards and forwards at the same time,
Yes.
and again, it's doing that to kind of keep you in the perspective of this guy whose memory isn't, you know, it keeps resetting literally almost, you know, every other scene.
Yes. Yes.
So you're kind of feeling that vicariously, but it's a huge strong point in editing and sequencing, because the way it's edited, you might not realize it at first, but it's foreshadowing
Right.
what's gonna happen. So you might have all your footage, and you're gonna say like, well, how do I possibly make something out of this? And that's where, you know, this comes in, is, you know, you're supposed to set yourself and others up for success. Now, as a writer, as a director, again, writing, you're sequencing things. Okay, the reason why this scene happens is so this scene can happen. We're gonna go from here to here. You're essentially helping the editor out, because they're just gonna be handed a ton of footage, and I mean, editing it is their job. Their job they might be someone who does not care about the story whatsoever, but if they have a script to reference, if they have, you know, a shot order to reference, they can you know, put together a film, and you know, that way, even though they might not have the passion for it. But you know, again, as a director, you got to think like, okay, I have these characters. I can't tell you how many, you know, of my friends' movies that I've seen where you have two characters and they're talking about something small like an object. Okay, but what they don't do is they don't get an insert of the object. So you have this wide shot of these characters talking about, you know, it could be like a locket, it could be whatever, it could be money, whatever. And without that sort of insert, just that additional information, you sort of do lose the audience in a way, especially if it's something of importance. Like, has anybody seen Inception? Anybody
Yes.
seen Inception?
Yes.
So I mean, the spin top.
Yep.
You know, I mean, how many shots in that movie are just of this little spin top on a desk? Could you imagine if it was just Leonardo DiCaprio? Granted, Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the best actors ever. You know, but could you imagine it's just him spinning this thing and there's no insert? Because once you have like an insert of an object, and once that's all that's in the scene, once it's just the object, you establish such a level of importance of this object. You go from a scene that's about Leonardo DiCaprio, again, like one of the best actors ever. Okay, it's his shot, and then you cut to a shot of the spinning top. That means that spinning top is just as important as this character. That means it means something. And again, it kind of comes back later in the film. I'm not going to spoil it because if any of you haven't seen it,
You need to see it.
You do got to watch it.
Very good.
So I have another example of one of my films. So we filmed a movie last summer. We premiered it this year called The Next War. And again, like everything I was talking about, of like objects, inserts, reactions, all this stuff, those are mistakes that I've made before, where I've gone like, oh crap, I didn't get that shot of somebody grabbing this object. I had three characters standing side by side next to each other, and the character on the far right reached over to grab something from somebody on the far left when it was in his hand. And we only got the wide shot. Well, when I played it back, the character on the far right, when he reached for the object, it honestly just looked like he was socking the dude in the groin. You couldn't even see him grabbing the object. And I'm like, oh crap, we got to get a shot of just the object being taken from the guy. Otherwise, in this serious movie, you're going to have this quick crotch hit, and then we don't know what the heck's going on. So again, relaying information to the audience. So in our film, The Next War, there's an object in the film that recurs throughout it, and it is a locket, or a pocket watch rather, and the protagonist, it's his watch, and without having those moments of it just being the watch, you wouldn't really establish that level of importance to the character. And then again, sort of sequencing, and you know, you have the character, he looks up from the watch and he looks up at his friend, played by Ben Kowalski on camera. This is his big dramatic moment. We'll watch it in a second. But you know, without him looking over there, again, back to the 180-degree rule, by me staying on that side of our protagonist, and then switching over to Ben over here without us being like, you know, left, right, the audience wouldn't be as well oriented in the scene. So I'll show you the scene, and you'll see how I stick, again, similar to the cars in Jurassic Park, I stick on one side of this entire lineup of guys. And just to give you a little bit more context in regard to the film, I split the film between 3 timelines. So, and this plays well into the Kuleshov effect of people seeing information and interpreting the story for themselves. So I split the film into the past, which in the past there's this big trench battle. It's filmed in black and white, but we also have this comic book effect over the movie, again, to kind of make it really feel like you're being told a story. And then the present timeline, that's in color, but still the comic book. This is when they're captured, and in the future, that's where everything is live action. You're seeing the characters, you know, not in this comic book style. You're seeing them for real. And throughout the movie, you see you're jumping back between all 3 of the timelines. You might not see how they're 100% related, but as you further yourself into the film, you visually see one transition to the next. And in this particular scene, the protagonist, his name is Captain Pollard. This scene is where he and his men have been taken captive. They're on the beach. All the remaining men left from that trench battle I was talking about, and the antagonist of the film is trying to strike a deal with him and saying, look, I know that your general is trying to plan this attack. We're ready for it. We're prepared. I'll let you and all these other guys go if you call in an order and essentially set these guys up for an ambush. We'll let you guys go if you call this in for us. And so it's a big moment in the film. But again, just back to the editing aspect of it.
Will you pause it for a second?
Yeah.
Sorry, will you make it full screen?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, just because I'm like, I really want to see.
Oh, you're good.
What say you, Cap? Last chance.
Captain, no! Don't do it! Don't make the call! Captain Pollock!
And that's pretty much it. Real quick, let's give Ben a round of applause. He was so nervous to film that scene. I'm like, man, you got it. You're going to be breaking
I love
hearts.
the effects.
Well, those are all available on Final Cut Pro, by the way. You guys use that on Final Cut. There's literally a plugin where you click the button and makes the movie look like
It
that.
looks
But,
really cool.
again, like going back to knowing your limits, not showing your limits, originally the film was not supposed to be filmed like this at all. I tried to get $15,000 to make this film. I crunched all the numbers, I budgeted the whole thing. We did a Kickstarter, and the thing about Kickstarter is if you don't get every single penny that you're asking for, you don't get to keep any of it by the time your campaign is done. So we got like, I want to say about $3,000. Then the time came up and I said, guys, we're filming in August no matter what. And I don't know, we're not going to make our budget. So that's where, again, Ruth came in. And she, you know, from day one, she opened up her doors and said, you can film whatever it is you want here. And so, again, okay, knowing my limits, not showing my limits. Okay, if I want to do this big trench scene, if I want to, you know, do all this cool visual effects stuff, you know, and I can't build it, naturally you think of like, okay, green screen. Well, you can kind of tell when somebody's on a green screen, right? And so I said, well, what if we made the characters this sort of comic book cartoon effect and did the same thing with the background? But once you do that and add that film grain layer over it, everything sort of starts to marry with each other. But it did only make making the film that much harder because scenes where characters they could be standing next to each other or standing across from one another. You could be over the shoulder of somebody else. We had to film every single element separately. So for example, when we're looking over somebody's shoulder talking to a character, they're not in the scene together. Actually, the guy's like off to the right and the guy's actually staring at a light pole with a little piece of tape on it. Because what we realized with this plugin is it does not know how to render when something is out of focus. It doesn't understand that sort of fuzz that you get when something's out of focus. So if you were just filming plain, okay, and have that character's shoulder be out of focus on the actual shot you got on the day, the computer would just make it like a weird blob. So we had to film everything separately in focus, and then in post-production, we had to turn the knob and figure out, okay, how much in focus is this out? So we actually had to measure everything, how far away it was from the lens, to figure out, okay, this is how much out of focus it would be. So we'd always have a measuring tape, and we had to do that for every single element in the film, including the background. And actually, this is the beach where we filmed the,
this is the infamous.
This is the infamous I'm from Romeo High School beach. Yeah. So that's, again, setting yourself up for success. Get the shots you need so that way when you edit it, you can have that punch, you can have that impact, you can have all the information you need to relay over to the audience. So just, you know, closing thoughts. Whatever it is you're doing, and you can apply it to film. I don't know how many of you want film to be your passion, broadcasting, anything related to the visual arts. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is you're doing, you should question what you're doing and why you're doing it. Okay? Why is Ms. Harbison telling me to make this movie? Why am I writing this particular scene? Why am I having the character say this line of dialogue? Why not say this line of dialogue? Why in the editing room am I holding on to a character? Why am I holding on their shot for maybe 5 seconds longer than what you normally might think? Maybe it's because of the emotional impact that you have. Like in that last scene I showed you, there's several times where we're just looking at a character and they're not saying anything. They're just looking at the opposite character. And that's because if you watch the beginning of the film and you actually go through the film, when you get to that moment, you're sort of like sitting on pins and needles a little bit because everything else before that scene establishes the stakes. You know, and you're saying like, will he do it, won't he do it? And having those moments creates really high tension between characters. And you know, be inspired by your life, literally with whatever you do. Especially right now while you're in high school, life is not black and white. You're not just going to be able to hand something to somebody else and say, okay, you do it. and this goes with life in general. If you want to be more valuable, you got to understand that life is in color, and you have to be able to understand those colors. You have to be able to draw, paint, whatever, scribble with all of those colors and learn how to use them to the best of your ability, because you will become so much more valuable, not only to yourself, but to your peers. Your kids are going to look up to you because they're going to say like, wow, my mom, dad, they can do all this cool, amazing stuff, and it's only one of them, okay? It's only one of them who's doing all these things, and they're like, where do they learn this stuff? You become such a more valuable asset to everybody around you. And again, in the workforce right now, working at Mitt, somebody like Ben is so valuable because he knows how to operate the sound equipment, he knows how to operate the film equipment, he knows just how to tape a wire down onto the floor. He knows how to wrap up a cable properly. That is so valuable. Every time somebody has come into the business and said, hey, I want to work for the Mitt TV, I hand them a cable. And I said, if you can wrap this cable, you can work for the Mitt TV.
Carter came to school and was like,
Yeah.
practicing in my back room.
Yeah,
He
and
was
he
like,
did it.
he's
He
like,
did it.
I gotta get this.
Yeah, and he did it.
He
He
was
did
like,
it. I interviewed him. Seemed like a great kid, and I was like, all right, there's one more thing. You just gotta know how to wrap. You just gotta know how to wrap the cable. Because I'll tell you what. Again, going back to setting others up for success. If you don't wrap a dumb cable correctly, the next guy who's gonna come in and needs that cable is gonna be wasting 5-10 minutes of their time, and they're running late to get to their shoot. So that's kind of. I don't know if that's what. Whether this helped. I hope it was able to help in some way, shape, or form. I'm always, especially at the Mitt, although we might not be there, maybe the door is actually locked. Our doors are open. All it takes is, call or email from Miss Harbison. Hey, I got so-and-so that wants to meet up. Or, you guys can reach out directly. It doesn't even have to be anything related to the Mitt, whether it's the short film projects. I'm not Steven Spielberg, I'm not Christopher Nolan, I'm not any of those people, I'm not even anywhere near an expert. But I've made the mistakes. I've lived through a lot of it, granted, still telling people I'm a senior in high school. So, if there's any questions that anybody has, I'm more than open to answering it. Or at least trying to. Yeah, what's your name?
I feel like, my name's Mike. I feel like once you start growing that facial hair, I feel like people are gonna
Why do you think I keep cutting it?
I know, right?
I keep cutting
It actually looks convincing, so.
No, I think this has been great. I know I've jotted some notes of things that I plan to do with the things that you mentioned. I hope you've, inspired some sort of spark here. To see what we come up with.
So you guys are making short films. Who's got an idea? What's your idea?
So my idea is like a group of friends. They're playing D&D, all right, and they have a GM, game master, who's like got control issues. He wants everything to be like his way, and it's like ruining the fun for everybody else. And it's like kind of like shots going back from they're in the game, like playing it, and something happens, and then they start arguing in like the actual world.
What's your name?
Max.
Max.
I thank you for the.
Right. Let's see you again, Max. Right there. He has his theme. Okay, it's control. He already has the relatable characters. Now, I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, but I've played Yahtzee. I've played Sorry. I've played other board games where it's, it's like, no, I'm in charge. No, I'm in charge. So you already have the relatability. So there's a good example. Now, I haven't read the script. I don't know how you sequenced it. I don't know how you're going to execute it. I don't know how you're going to shoot it. But you have the solid foundation, which is great. Who else has an idea?
We have one right here.
Oh, yeah.
We have two. One.
Yeah, 2 ideas. Awesome.
Go ahead. Ella, go first, and then Ella.
What's your name?
Ella.
Nice to meet you, Ella.
So it's like these group of friends, and it's based off a book I've written, but they have their DNA mutates, so they have powers, and so they have to navigate being a teenager and trying to hide from people who want to take the powers with them from them, so they have to yeah.
No, you're right on the ball.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
I remember
awesome.
being a teenager being like, no, I don't want anybody to mess with me. I have a younger brother who just started going to high school, and
is he here?
9th grade academy.
Oh,
so
okay.
He has a little bit of distance between with what I'm going to say, but I poke fun at him like, oh yeah, we got the teenage angst going. Yeah. But you're dealing with change, right? Being a teenager, it's all about change, and especially when you graduate. I know kids that have graduated high school, graduated last year, and they'll give me a phone call and they'll be like, Brennan, this is not what I thought. I'm like, yeah, it's a big change. When I graduated high school, I went right into work. And we didn't have the academies like you guys have now. There was no acclimation. Next thing I know, I'm working at a furniture store full time, putting tables together, putting chairs together, doing all this monotonous stuff, trying to save money to go to film school. It was the biggest change in my life, and you're going, what the heck is going on? Everybody else is in college, everybody else is moving forward. But no, like that's a great juxtaposition, right? Being a teenager, and then you have this other, you have the spectacle element, which is awesome, which is this sort of mutation. I mean, that's great. That's a good, again, a good foundation. Who else?
Do you know what you're on?
Wait, hold on, we got two at the same time. Who should I go to first?
Let's go to Eliza next because she's going to talk about her.
Yeah, go.
I can't see you real quick.
Sorry. Okay, so my film idea was there's a person who is new to a job at a lab, and they are trying to get through the day without like breaking anything, spilling anything. They're trying to make sure they don't mess up in any way, shape, or form because they don't want to get in trouble.
Right.
And because they barely got that job.
Right.
So they need it to live.
No, and that's a great. So when we talked about perspective earlier, this is a great opportunity to analyze perspective of a character, right? Because let's just be honest, this character that you're describing, they're out of everybody else in that room, if they're in a space, odds are they're the only character, the only person in that room that is thinking, oh my God, I can't mess up, I can't do this, I can't do that, oh my. So again, I go back to Oppenheimer, because that was such a great use of perspective, is throughout that movie, you have this guy, this nuclear physicist, who throughout the movie, you're seeing this quantum realm through his lens. Okay, you're seeing atoms spin, you're seeing things that other people aren't seeing, you're seeing his interpretation of what he thinks atoms colliding looks like, what fusion looks like. So I mean, this could be the same thing here with your character, analyzing like a lot of like little things around them, you know, making sure everything, you know, making sure, you know, maybe that OCD, making sure everything's straight, everything's perfect, everything's right. So I mean, you have a good opportunity here. And I say opportunity, now you got to execute. You got to execute the opportunity. Like your other classmates here, you got a solid foundation, now you got to execute. You got to set yourself as the director and yourself up as the editor up for success now. Because you've done your good job as the writer so far. I haven't read a script. So execute. Good.
No, I was just going to ask, what's your brother's name? Because my
I can't disclose that.
Oh, my bad.
I already let out that there's a restaurant. Yeah.
Cindy, will you share your story? Remember the one you wrote when we did like the character analysis? Do you remember?
I think I remember.
Like the end, how it came up?
I think I remember what it was.
I think that was a good idea too. I think that was, she's going to grab her paper.
Cool.
So we did like a character analysis.
Right.
Did you base that on a song or the character?
Oh, it was like music.
Oh, okay. So I just played them a bunch of different songs and said, just write. Whatever comes to mind, just start writing a story.
That's awesome.
And she had one that at the end it was like, oh.
And this is just writing a story?
This was just get thoughts on paper.
Right.
Not even a script. We're just literally at the introduction phase. Just trying to like percolate some ideas.
Cool.
And I think you have a good start too.
Okay, so I said friends hanging out.
Wow, that's move closer.
I said friends hanging out late at night and sneaking into an old circus, but then they realize that they are trapped and can't find a way out. Then all of a sudden, one of their friends goes missing, so they get into a fight whether they should go look for him or like find a way out. But later on, one by one, they all start like disappearing and dying. And then if they want to survive, they have to like play along with the circus. But in the end, they all end up dying because the circus they snuck into was called Lucifer, which is Lucifer's village.
Okay. So what you have here is a great plot.
Yes.
And I've seen a lot of movies with great plots, but what they're missing is that theme, that bug. That's what you need to find now. What's your theme? You gotta ask yourself the question, why are my characters in this place? Okay, not just because, they stumbled upon it.
Right.
Thematically, why are they there? What are you trying to pursue? One of the things I talk about with a lot of my friends when it comes to film work, and they say you gotta have skin in the game. Okay, there should be a portion of you on that screen, and it should be transparent, but there should be a portion of you on that screen. So, for example, let me think of again, like I was on the bowling team, right? I mean, a lot of people would not have known that I was on the bowling team. I actually skipped pictures.
I was gonna say I didn't know you were
Yeah,
on the bowling team.
there's no record of me on the bowling team. Then I skipped picture day. I never wore my uniform to school. I remember during the pep assemblies, you know, when they'd be like, the football team, stand up, yeah, hockey, yeah, volleyball, yeah. There was one kid from the bowling team went, woohoo! Out of this entire auditorium, and I go, oh, sit your butt down, man. Like, I'm not standing up for characters, but I mean, you know, I love those guys to death. But again, you know, have some skin in the game. Pull from something that you know. Like, there's a reason why you wrote that, why you listen to this music, and why that's what translated to you. So now you need to sit down and ask yourself, well, why would I think of this? Because stuff does not just happen. I don't believe in coincidences. What's his name, the painter? Bob Ross, only is it happy accidents?
Yeah.
You know, happy accidents. You know.
Yeah,
So
like what
you
drew
gotta know
them? Why
yeah.
those kids? Is there the backstory to why they ended up there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it was a good start, and that's what we needed. Was like, how do we pull?
Yeah, you have the plot. You have a good plot, and so I think that if you give it some bite with the theme, people are gonna walk away from the movie more impacted. Because do you want people to sit down and watch a movie and go like, oh yeah, you know the characters, this happened, this happened, this happened, oh, you know, they walk away like, yeah, it was good. Or do you want them to go? Do you want them to be driving home or turning off their computer, switching off their phone, wherever they watched it, and going like, oh, that really like said something. Like that actually reminds me of when I did this or when I felt like this. You know, and it create again that relatability to it, right? So I think you have a good start.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Ms. Harbison, any questions from you?
No,
anything like that?
I think we're good.
Okay, cool. No, I appreciate.
Awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. And like I said, if you have any questions, we might not actually be at the studio, but you know, call or email, whatever you need.
Yeah, for sure. All right,
So,
let's
thank you guys.
them a